Hey Scott. So the conference rooms were all taken up at my office, so I have to film this outside, and we'll see how that goes because there's an airport right here and a bunch of really noisy insects, but hopefully you'll still be able to hear me, and we'll hope that goes well. One of the things that came up a lot, both in the comments on YouTube and in the comments when I've been talking to other people outside of YouTube, is that this fake geek persecution is not really a staple of geek culture. It is a handful of stupid people being stupid. And every community has their stupid extremists, and these are ours. And I think that's true. But I don't think that lets us off the hook, because every group has their stupid extremists, and look at how many groups we think of as being defined by their stupid extremists. And the only thing that can prevent that is the rest of the group standing up and saying, no, that is not what we are about, and providing that counterbalancing view. And so that's part of why I want to talk about it here, is to provide that counterbalancing view. But the other thing I think is true is that, yes, those people are idiots, but they are tapping into this well of genuine anger. And so what I want to talk about today is where that anger came from and why it's happening, because I think understanding is part of figuring out what to do with it. And as you said, it doesn't come from nowhere. The anger is there for a reason. What I want to explore is what the reasons are that lead to that sort of thing. One thing one guy said was that, we were abused for a long time. We were beaten up, we were taunted, we were scorned, we were ostracized for enjoying this stuff. And now that other people are being like, hey, this is actually really cool, this is good stuff, we kind of feel like we deserve a thank you. We deserve a yes, that's awesome, an apology. And we're like the early Christian martyrs that despite the abuse we got, we stuck through. We believed in this stuff so much that we were willing to stick with it even though we were getting abused for it. Well, now when the cool people are coming and being like, dude, actually this is really awesome, we kind of feel like we're owed an apology because we kept this alive. We put the money in to make it worthwhile for people to make comic books and make video games and develop new video game technology. That's our fault. And we deserve a thanks and we deserve an apology for it. But the thing is, the people that were beating us up in high school, I don't think are getting into this stuff. Like, I think they're probably more respectful of geeks because we are kind of taking over the world. But I don't think that they're super into, I don't think they're going to see Guardians of the Galaxy. The cool people who are into it now are new people. They're new teenagers. They're kids. They're young adults. They never beat us up. And I think they're a little bit baffled by the fact that we think they owe us an apology when they never did anything to us. I just finished The World Until Yesterday by Jared Diamond, and he talks about the fact that until very, very recently, every human in the world has lived in a tribe. Our brains are designed to optimize for living in tribes. And one of the things every tribe has is a way to determine who gets the benefit of being in the tribe, the food and the resources and whatever, and the protection, and who doesn't. And for that, we have, there's all sorts of ways to make that sort of password, right? It can be like shared knowledge, it can be the way you pronounce things, it can be a haircut, it can be all kinds of options, right? And when people try to claim being in a tribe when they can't provide those passwords, then you get angry with them because they're stealing resources from you. And I think there's some of that in there that there is this instinct. If somebody is trying to get into your tribe, but they haven't earned being in your tribe, that you kick them out and you get angry with them because that's what you do. But it doesn't actually make sense in this context because there aren't actually any shared geek resources that they're taking away from us by claiming to be a geek. And there's a lot of question about, is being a geek good? Is it bad? And I think a lot of the art in our society right now is asking that question. Is being a geek good or bad? I would argue the entirety of the Big Bang Theory, all the seasons, are just exploring that question. Is it good to be a geek? Is it bad to be a geek? And the thing is, they just got signed on for more seasons because we haven't answered that question. I think the Thor movies are about whether it's good or bad to be a geek. Because on the one hand, Thor is totally a jock. and Loki is totally a geek. And Loki keeps beating Thor because, no, Loki, he is never not going to fall for that. But Loki is also a jerk because he has all of this suppressed rage, and he feels that because he was underappreciated and he was abused when he was a child, he is entitled to that rage and to hurt other people. And so he acts like a total jerk, and then nobody likes him, and then he feels like because nobody likes him, he's entitled to be angry, and it just keeps spiraling. And that's a thing that's happening in our community right now, in our society, and our art is exploring it. So we're very ambivalent about being a geek, which is a vast improvement on what was going on when we were in middle school or high school, because it might be good or bad is totally different from it's bad and we're going to hit you because of it. And so we are seeing this explosion of people who are like geek curious. They're like, I don't know if I'm a geek, but I think I might be, and I'd like to check it out. What do you do when you're geek curious? What's the right approach? Changing identity is hard. I mean, whether that's, changing religion, or coming out as transgender, or changing from being single to being married, or just changing to not being on the swim team. Changing identity is always hard for humans. And it's especially hard in adolescence, which is really stupid because the entire point of adolescence is to give you a chance to explore and see what you're interested in, figure out what your identity is. But instead, high school makes it so if you change your identity even the tiniest little bit, people will jump on you. And so what they're afraid of is if I show myself to be a geek, I'm going to be ostracized from the community I've been in. But I'm afraid they won't accept me in the geek community, and then I won't have everyone. So they're kind of tiptoeing back and forth. They're I think I might be a little bit of a geek. And then we jump on them. If you're not 100% geek, then you are not a geek, and we freak right out. And so I think we're also magnifying the problem. If they knew they could be accepted in the geek community, then they would be more willing to actually commit to being a geek. But we do have to accept that, yes, there's people who are going to be I don't know if I'm a geek or not, and they're going to come explore, and it's going to turn out they're not, and that has to be okay. And the other thing that brings up is that there's a lot of projection in what we do and what we're exploring. Take the example of the person who posted on Facebook, "Tee-hee, I'm such a geek." And what did they mean by that, right? This person thinks that meant they're trying to claim benefits to which they have no right in our tribe. And this person thinks that they're using it to denigrate geeks, to defend themselves from accusations because being a geek is a bad thing. And this person thinks that maybe they're just trying to explore tentatively changing between identities. And we don't know what this particular person meant. It happens. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It's how we interpret it that determines our reaction. And I think we need to acknowledge that we don't know what they meant by that. And therefore, we can't really rationally decide on a reaction until we do know what they meant by that. And for that, we have to ask them. We have to engage in conversation. The other reason you brought up that I think is a really good point is the fear of abandonment by the content creators. The fear of diluting the geek brand and the geek concept and it turning into this mass market sludge. And I think that's a really definite possibility because it would explain why we're super hypersensitive to fringe cases. Is this geeky or is it not? And if you edge even slightly in the direction of being not geeky, everybody freaks out. And that would explain that. If what we're afraid of is it getting turned into this stupid mass market shit, then anything we see as possibly the first step of that, we would freak out way out of proportion to how far that step was. And I do see that happening. So I think that's a definite point. But What I see is actually the opposite. I think that as it becomes a commercial success and people are going to continuing to see the Marvel movies and continuing to see the fantasy movies, that the creators are getting a lot more leeway. Like in the early days, they, had to wrap up within this many movies, and they had to get to the action quickly, and they had to have a leading lady and a leading man and an on-screen kiss. And as it's become clearer that people really are interested in seeing this geeky stuff, I think the directors of the movies and the creators of the television shows are getting more leeway to be like, no, I'm going to stick to the source material, and that one doesn't have a leading lady, and you can just freaking cope with it. And the executives are like, well, that seems wrong to us, but the last time you said you were sticking to the source material, you made us millions of dollars, so okay, we'll give it a shot. And as long as we keep going to see those movies, to read those books, to watch those TV shows, they're going to keep giving the content creators more license to not be mass market sludge. And so I think all of this comes down to the question, what does it mean to be a geek? You talked about the semantic shift that's going on, and I would argue it's actually an additional meaning, that it used to be geek was the people who have these undesirable traits. And that was synonymous with being interested in comic books or video games or math or whatever. And now geek can mean either socially awkward or interested in comic books. And yes, there's overlap in that Venn diagram. But we're recognizing that it doesn't have to be 100% overlap. So should both of those meanings be allowed? Should we come up with one term for this circle and one term for that circle? Should we have a rating scale that says I am this level of interested in this number of things? Should geek always be modified by an adjective? I am a math geek and a science geek and a Sherlock geek and a Harry Potter geek, but I am not a Doctor Who geek or a video game geek. What's the best way to figure out what the community means? And only then can we coherently and cohesively talk about what to do with the community and how to define it. So those are my thoughts. Don't forget to be awesome, and I'll talk to you later.